Alright, I've got my spring clamps applied, and I have let down the power from the spring into the spring clamps with my let down tool that I made from a broom handle. Put a slot in it, you drill a hole in it, make sure you've got room for an extra piece of key if you have an extra piece of key, and you have a let down tool. I put on there, move my click out of the way, and slowly let this down until all the pressure's on the spring. Clamp, not the spring itself, the spring clamp. So I'm ready to start taking this apart. Wow, that's really tight. This one didn't quite have all the power out, as you can see. But you can get a good idea of how it works. "12 o'clock coming up." Boop. And then as the day goes by, so they say to set it between 12 and noon, because otherwise you're halfway lifted up and your weighted lever can't drop all the way. Almost done. It's probably still going to slip and pop a little bit when I take these screws out. When I wound this side, it would catch a little bit. I'm going to have to check the spring over here. They may just need to be greased. Okay. Feels like there's another screw holding it. I bet there is. I bet that cam holds something together. I'll need to take this off before I can get the plates apart. It's riveted on the front, so I need to remove it from the back. There's a pin through it, I can see. Let's see where the other, oh, there it is. They bent it like an S. take this lever off while I'm back here. Now it lets me see where the 5th screw was. That's why it wasn't coming apart. A lot of oil on this thing. It's just floating on parts of it. So your escapement wheel usually stays in because of this little hanger right here. So if you're very careful, you can get it out with all your pieces still intact so you can see where they are. Yeah, very junky. Look at all that. Can you see that black stuff on the inside of it? So we're going to clean all of this. Lots of greasy looking stuff. So we are going to clean all that up. And then we will check and see if we need to redo any bushings. This is a pretty standard setup for any turn of the century American clock. So I'm not going slow and explaining all of it because I've done it in other videos. So I'll kind of explain as I put it back together. Okay. This is the stroke. This is the time. It doesn't matter as much on this clock. They both turn the same direction. Some clocks turn opposite directions. But yeah, very gunky. Someone oiled the heck out of everything, thinking oil made it better. So these will go off to the cleaning. I've cleaned all the parts in my cleaner, and I let the springs down and clean them. I'm going to grease them and roll them back up, but they've opened up nicely. They seem to be in good shape. That's what you look for your springs. Whether or not you need to replace them is if they stay tiny when you let them out, or whether they still have some give to them, spring to them, force when you compress them. So I'm going to grease these springs and wind them back up. I use pretty heavy duty hydraulic grease on them because when you wind these all the way it squeezes so tight there's no oil left in them. There was not any oil left in them. There was some dirt left in them when I cleaned them, but there was no oil or grease in these. And when I wound it, sometimes it would bind and skip. So I'm going to put some grease in them and put my clamps back on them. I've put the strike side wheels back in to check and see what bushings I need to do. I don't have the springs in. But the springs wind this direction, so they put pressure on the first wheel going that way. And you'll notice that there is side-to-side motion right here in this pivot hole, which also gives this one an odd action. When this one pushes in, that one pushes up. So these two need bushings. These others are still good. They don't have any wear to speak of. But it has pushed up and in, so I need to make sure I recenter the holes when I drill them. So I'm going to mark this side and we'll go to the other side. Let's see, a green Sharpie. It has pushed that way, so I need to go that way. And that one pushed up. I need to push down that way. And I need to push just straight over, it looks like. On those two. Alright, back side I haven't looked at yet. About the same on the back. The grease around the pivot holes, the oil was so black and hard that I've scrubbed and it's still, well, that looks worn even to the naked eye. That one's definitely going to have some work. I'm still getting solid chunks of oil off. Alright, so we've got the same side-to-side motion on this one. That one looks a little worse than on the front side. And then this is the hardest one to check in here. So it's got this odd up and down movement also. You have to get the wheel where it normally rides for you to be able to see the wear pattern. And this one definitely moves up and down, so I may not have had it in a good spot over here. Because if you stick it all the way in the hole and move it, it doesn't look like it moves very much. There's still enough of the pivot hole in there to hold it good when it's all the way in, but when it's not, that's when you're seeing some movement. So these both need to be done. So this is going that way, that's going that way, that's going up that way. So it needs to push back that way. It's pushed in. So push it back to the middle. Back down. And back over. Okay. Well, 3 bushings front and back on that side. We'll check the other side. So, second wheel is same shape as the one on the other side, being pushed to the side. You wind it this way, it unwinds that way. This turns that way, so it's pushing that way. Needs to be brought back that way. So that's pushing that way and pushing that way. Third wheel under here is hard to see. Let's see, great wheel. First wheel, second wheel, third wheel, escapement wheel. So I guess it would be the third wheel. It's up underneath the escapement wheel, so it's hard to see. But if that one is turning that way, that one's turning down that way, it would push that one up. I think it's moving too much. It's hard to tell with the escapement wheel on top of it. Escapement wheel looks fine. this way, it's unwinding that way, which is putting pressure that way in. So that one needs to go that way. Ooh, quite a bit of movement in the fourth wheel on the back side. And that one I could see from the naked eye that is horrible, that is the escapement wheel. That has a huge gouge out of it. It's amazing it stayed running. So we will get these lined back up. I think that one is alright. But when I'm redoing 3 on one side, I usually do the 4th. So we're going to mark these other ones. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 bushings coming up. I have a new bushing machine. That's the cool part. I'm going to try here. Get this set up and use this. It's the first time using my bushing machine, so I'm kind of learning as I go along. The way I've done it before was by hand. I measured my plate. I measured my pivot end, 1.21. I'd look on the scale. The plate was 1.4. The pivot was a little bit more than 1.2. That's L18. But when I bought this, it also came with this, so it does all of that for me. I go down the holes until it can fit right there. I look over here to the plate height of 1.4 and it tells me I need L17. So I look here, no L17. Look in the other set, L17. It says I need the reamer number 3, which is 1, 2, 3, should be this one. And then to find 17, the bushing number 17, the last number, the 7, is the column. So slide your holes over to the 7th column. And the first number is 1, go down 0, 1. And that should be your L17 bushing right there. So I'm going to get my tweezers because those pliers are not working. And try it on there. Looks good, not very loose. So that's the one I'm going to go with. So this is the back plate with the very badly scored hole for my escapement wheel. So I want the piece to be able to go down in it, so I'm going there. And
back up some more.
centering tool should be here. So I'm going to work from the inside. So it's that hole right there. Alright, I'm going to lower this, find the center, clamp it down. Okay. Alright, I'm going to double check the back and make sure. I'm pretty sure that I've got it centered in the original hole. But I'm going to check the back. It ground down when it ground. So I need to be at the top of the hole, which is where I was. Alright, so now I'm going to take my centering punch out. I'm going to put number 3 in. Alright, so for people with carpal tunnel or people that don't have good balance, when you're doing it by hand, you've got to keep this hand piece totally flat while you're doing it. So for people that have trouble with all that, one of these machines is a great investment. Alright, small chamfer. That's not a chamfer, that's a cutter. Chamfer, get any spurs off. Then your pusher. Oil sink side down, flat side up. And it should push flush. I may have to get a bigger pusher because it's not going to quite be flush. I want it to touch the sides quite touching underneath. Not quite flush. Alright, let's try my wheel in there. Looks pretty good. It's hard to get this in here without bending any of your little teeth. This seems bent at a very odd angle. Alright, we'll put that in there. There's a pretty good end shake. I'm getting a little binding. I'm going to put some screws in, make sure I'm not binding any. And if I am, I will broach out the hole just a little bit. I put 3 screws in. I've got good end shake. Not getting bound up. And it's spinning nicely. So I'm ready to do my next bushing. So I'm going to do all these bushings that are marked in the same fashion, and then we'll come back together to put the clock together. I'll show you one other way to check your wear on your pivots and whether or not you need bushings. So this obviously needs a bushing. It tilts way far. This direction, it's not bad at all. If the wear on the wheel was going that way, we'd be good, but it goes this way, and look how much it moves in that direction. So this hole has been reamed out over the years and needs a bushing. So that's another way to check. It's the last bushing I've done, all of them on both sides. The center didn't need any, but I want to show you how easy this is with this machine. Center it, lock it down. Cut your bushing. It's done. Put your chamfer in to take off any sharp edges, little burrs. Put your pusher in. Take your bushing. Throw it on the table. Take your bushing, put it in the hole. Push down and turn. It's in. It's done. I can do bushings on both plates in a few hours now instead of all day. It's nice. Very nice. The only one I had to do by hand was this one because it was up under here. And it was binding when I got done. When I stuck the smoothing broach in there, it was off at an angle like this. So it is nice to have a machine that's going to get them all straight, and when you put them in, you don't have any binding. I'll show you. All of them would have been that way. Nice spin, perfect fit. I think it was a good investment. So, I'm ready to put all of it back together. I took some rubbing alcohol and it rubbed off all of the green Sharpie that I had marked these with. So I'm ready to start putting this movement back together. Okay, time side's good. Strike side. Still a little bit greasy. I got this one greasier than the other one. Strike side toward the front. This guy. Then the cam guy. I may have that spring clamp in my way to be able to put this on. I think this gear and this wheel needs to be right where that spring clamp's hitting. I think I got it under it. Let's get the cam pointed up. Alright, and then this guy with the third wheel warning pin to the top. This count wheel's held on by this little U-shaped bracket, and there's a little tiny pin right there on the top of it that goes in that hole. So you just when you want to take it off, you just lift that tip out of the hole and it'll push off. When you put it on, you just slide it down until it snaps into that hole. And that keeps it on. Okay, the fun part, the levers. Checking my levers. I have not checked them. I did polish all my pivots before I put that back together, but I've got to check these levers. This count lever's got a spur on it and I'm looking a little bit worn. That's the strike for the hammer. The hammer needs new leather. It didn't have any leather in it when I got it. It's just got a square with a hole in the middle of it. So I've got a little bit of work to do on these before I put them in. That's the half-hour lift. I did decide to take it back apart and put a spring because I didn't like how the lever was acting. Wasn't reliably hitting on the cam inside there to strike, move the strike on the half-hour. So this is how I made a spring. I took my wire spool and wound it around something else. You could use a spring out of a ballpoint pen if you needed one a little heavier. This one's not going to require a whole lot of tension. This metal is not nearly as heavy as the metal that's on the gauge of the wire is not as big as the gauge of what's on the other two levers. The gong wire is the only one that really needs a really strong lever. This one does not need as strong a lever. That's why it's only got 2 turns around it. The gong wire's got about 4 or 5 turns around it. But I put a bunch of turns around this because this is really fine wire. So it is going to go in like so. So I'm going to thread this on this end so I can hook it to the bottom of the case. And I want it to push down. So I want to turn it that way. This is tight enough it doesn't want to turn on there. Maybe it's too tight. But I'm going to get it between these 2 arms by twisting it. Little trial and error, and I've got the spring on there with an extra piece to hook on. I had it backwards to start with. That whole long thing I started with is now that short because this wire breaks easily. As you can see, my little pieces here. But anyway, I've got the piece the way I'd like it. So I took these middle going pieces out to slip this piece in and out. This bottom J goes all the way to the bottom under this 3rd wheel. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get it under there. There we go. And then the little L-shaped second part of this arm lever goes in the cam, and that one is down there as a strike for the half hour. I should be under, I feel like I should be under that wheel because it's rubbing on it. And once again, this is being pushed out. That's why it's rubbing, because this cam wheel is being pushed down at an angle from my spring. Alright, now I'm under everything. Okay, I'm going to put my center pieces back on and put this back together. Well, I skipped ahead a little bit. I thought I had hit the record, and apparently I hadn't hit anything right. So anyway, it is back together. I had a couple of adjustments to make because when I put it back together, tried to wind, it wouldn't, this side wouldn't wind. And I thought maybe it was something to do with this click that had been soldered, and it ended up being my second wheel up here. I had it on upside down, so the lantern pinion was not contacting the wheel. It was flipped the other way, so when I would wind, it would unwind. It would just immediately unwind again. So that is why I make little drawings for myself that tell me which way the wheels go and which way the lanterns go, the pinions. Just in case I mess up and put one upside down for some reason. Okay, so after I got that working right, the next was to turn this and see how my strike mechanism was working. You'll notice right now that strike lever is centered in that slot. There was a lot of wear on the head of this. It should not be touching one side or the other side. It should come right into the middle and stop. It shouldn't rub. It will slowly, from what the book said, it will slowly on the one parts of the count wheel that have more slots, it will be off enough that it'll finally strike an extra time, like 13 times on hour 12. It won't do it on the lesser hours because it doesn't, you know, all the little micromillimeters that it's off have to add together to be enough to make it strike an extra time. So there aren't enough slots in the smaller counts for it to mess up like that. So if your count wheel is cuckooing 13 times, check this. What I discovered was this is not a 90-degree into here. And I'm going to have to go back and check some of my other cuckoo clocks and see if they do the same thing, because I'm pretty sure I have made them be 90 degrees on ones that have a count wheel. This is 45 degrees from the center. If you did a radius straight up and over, it's not 45. I think it's 48 is what the book said. So you'll notice it kind of aims up and then in and ends in the center. You want it aimed at your center, not aimed straight down at your wheel, but straight to your center. What else can I share that I learned out of that book? The gong, it said on the mechanisms that are like a sessions movement that have more strike arms for the gong, it says don't rest your gong against one of the pins because it takes more force to activate it. So you want it to be about 1/4 of a turn off from that. I think that's all I can think of at the moment. I set this morning and it's been running good. It's kept great time. It is 5:36 right now, and that's about what it's pointing at. It's been going off on the hour at a minute till, and it's pointing straight up every time, so it's 1 minute fast, but that's as close as I could get it without a dial to go by. So this is ready to go back in the clock. On the back side, it's hard to get a good picture of it, but the cam back there has been turning all day. Right now this lift arm, let's see if I can get a shot of it. This lift arm is, say if this cam was straight up and down when it falls, right now it's pointing straight to the side and it's sitting at the top right here. So as it keeps turning over the next 7 hours, it should be straight up and drop down. But I'm going to put it back in the clock and set it up to go that way. I've put both pieces back in the case. I need to find out where midnight is so I know where to put my hands on. So I'm going to turn the dial. My little leather piece is sounding good on there. What I'm waiting for is the cam right here in the back to get straight up and down and this mechanism to drop. Then I know that's midnight, so I can put my hands on. In between the movement being on the test stand and putting it in here, I did wipe it all down with some rubbing alcohol to get all my fingerprints off of it so that they don't get etched into the brass over time. I oiled all the pivots. And I put this wire on to make it possible when the dials are on, you'll be able to reach between the dials and push this up. If the time is ever the strike doesn't match what the hands say. That was missing originally. Now previously this back piece activated at 10 o'clock, so we'll see where it's going to do it now that I've taken it apart and put it back together. By the way, this is the key that winds it. Most turn-of-the-century clocks, they use the same size arbor for your hands as your springs. See how high this is? This is pulled very high right now. This little arm is way far away from that little 2-arm bracket there. It's going to drop on this arm whenever it activates. This is 10 o'clock. Sorry, 11 o'clock. So when I first set this up and it tripped from February 29th to March 1st, I stopped right there, turned this to Friday, March 1st. So that is 2024. I just have to, when I find out where midnight is and put the hands on, advance the calendar to today. And it'll be all set to set up and run. Okay, it never dropped. I went all the way around. Let's keep it going. There it went. So a few minutes after midnight, but before it turned enough to strike 12:30. Okay. So I'm going to put the face on and the hands on. The final setting is setting your time. That's not right. That's definitely not right. Alright, let me fix the hand. Okay, turn the hand the right way. We'll have to go, it's evening now. So to set the time, I have to go past noon. But the directions on the calendar say to make any corrections for that between midnight and noon. So before I get past 12 again, I need to set this down here. So the first thing you do is push up under this little weighted piece to change your day of the week. Today is Monday, and it is June the 3rd. So I'm going to push up on the weight. I'm going to push up on the little peg, the little wire that sticks down beside and releases the top mechanism. Then I can turn to whatever day I want. But the problem is I'm still in March, so I got to go April, May, and now June. I'm going to stop a little bit ahead. Good thing, because it just dropped to the 3rd. Okay. Which is today, June the 3rd. So I just have to go past 12 to evening time. And the clock is ready to put somewhere and enjoy. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope you learned as much as I did about the different calendar clock movements. They definitely are not the same. A lot of intricacies with this Waterbury one with less cams than the Ithaca and the Seth Thomas one that I found. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.